me about your sport, a highlight of your career, what you do right now, and what keeps you motivated and loving what you do.
Yeah, thanks, Corinne. Good morning, everyone. Exciting to talk through everything we have to go over today. But the sport that started everything for me, it was football. That's what I played primarily growing up. And I'd say the highlight of that career is I had an opportunity to play with, at this point in time, the third all-time most winningest coach in the state of North Carolina, Bob Paroli. And I was a part of his first and only championship team back in 2008. So looking back, that's definitely the highlight. And you always say, oh, we'll be right back when you get a taste of that victory. It's not always that easy. We didn't see it again. But moving fast forward to this time, I'm currently working for Octagon, which is a marketing agency. We do a lot of things with a lot of different companies, but the root of what I do is take companies that you're aware of, Taco Bell or MasterCard or PlayStation, and we pair them with sports and entertainment to create memorable events. So that's the root of what I do, and I love it because every day is a challenge. Every day you're asked to do better than the last. You see an idea from scratch, and it's really exciting to see that play out to fruition.
Well, I'm excited that you're here. I've definitely been a witness to your journey. I remember the first time being introduced to you. I feel so old when I talk now about the Game Changers, but I remember, meeting you when you were a student at Queens, and to work with you again as an intern at ESPN, and now to see you managing accounts for Octagon. I'm like, bet when I need a ticket to some kind of whatever, I already know who I'm texting. So thank you for being here. I'm so excited. Fenton, hailing from the Horned Frogs of TCU. So excited for you to be here. Same question as Lawrence. You lost an arm there, so you have to kind of be mindful of that.
No.
We don't want you to be amputated or anything, but tell us about you.
Absolutely. So definitely glad to be here. Once again, Cam Fenton. I am here at TCU with the Horned Frogs in Fort Worth, Texas. My title right now is Assistant Director of Development and Letterman Association. So I work with our donors and supporters, fans, as well as our former athletes, creating great experiences for them, keeping them engaged, and also asking them for money. So helping to support our athletics department and our student athlete experiences. For my sports, so since the age of 3, been playing basketball. So that was my first love. I just knew I was going to the league. Things didn't work out exactly like that. But basketball, football were my 2 sports definitely through high school. And we'll kind of go a little bit deeper into those. But I guess I would say my highlight so back in high school, so for football, according to Max Preps, I was the leading kick returner in the state my senior year. So
Max Preps is Bible, so whatever
it is. It's the real deal. It's the real deal for sure. So that was cool. But what keeps me going within what I do these days, I mean, we'll kind of dive a little bit deeper later, but I started off in strength and conditioning. So I was a strength and conditioning coach at University of Illinois, transitioned to TCU. I'm in my 3rd position right now, but ultimately, the student athletes, being able to pour in and, using sports as a platform to uplift and develop those young people. That's what keeps me going every day, and just connecting with people. So I love what I do every day. So it's a blessing.
Us young people, don't be trying to act like you old. Thank you, Cam. Make sure you keep that arm in place. Candice, Super Bowl champ. If I knew the Kansas City Chiefs motto, I would say it, but I don't, because I know the real football, which is soccer. So, but tell us about yourself. Make sure you always start with, I was part of a Super Bowl winning team, but go ahead.
Oh, yes. Hello, my name is Candice Dominguez, Super Bowl champion. No, but seriously, I'm Candice Dominguez. Good morning, everybody. I ran track in high school, but my freshman year was kind of my first year doing that. Since I could walk, I was a cheerleader. So I did cheer and track in high school. Not a common combination by any means, but I loved it. I fell in love with track, and I did it through the end of my master's degree, actually. So my highlight in high school was probably jumping over myself, because I'm only 5'5". So as soon as I jumped 5'5", I was like, okay, I can do anything in the world. Like, I can do anything now. And currently, I am the player engagement coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs. What that looks like is I take the guys, the players on the team, and help them get back enrolled in school, help them get internships and externships in the off season to make that transition from being a professional athlete to being a retired professional athlete a lot smoother, because the guys are typically only in the league for 2.5 to 3 seasons. So not everybody is going to be set for the rest of their lives. So we have to take that into consideration. And I absolutely love that, because the hardest part of my time as a student athlete was no longer being a student athlete. So we'll talk more about that later, but that's why I do what I do.
Not everybody can be Patrick Mahomes and can make $500 million and, all these things. So I get that. Well, you all talked about, thank you all for introducing yourself. And I'm terrible at introducing myself, but I am an Air Force veteran, a proud product of 2 Haitian immigrants. I had the opportunity to be Pat Summitt's last graduate assistant. And for those who don't know who Pat Summitt is, she is the winningest coach in college basketball history, not just women's, but all college basketball. So that's kind of my moniker, is her last graduate assistant. Then I spent 5 years at ESPN managing 5 of the 41 ESPN owned and operated events, which I don't think many people know. ESPN actually owns these events. So Lawrence was on the team with me. We did more than one event together, but we do everything but play and coach in the game. So ticketing, marketing, promotions, game operations, team logistics, getting haircuts for players, like everything you could possibly think of for a game, ESPN took care of that. And then I left that position about 4 years ago. Jeff, you have to hold me accountable for that, despite my mother's concerns to really do the winning edge full time. And it's been having conversations like this with these fine game changers really keeps me motivated and going, despite how hard it may be to really challenge diversity, equity, and inclusion in sports entertainment. So speaking of adversity, speaking of the transition, Candice, you talked about, cheering, running track, going to run track in Nebraska. What has been the hardest part of making that transition from being an athlete at Nebraska to being more than that, with the Kansas City Chiefs?
Yeah, so the hardest part of not being a part of my team anymore was I felt like I lost my identity. My entire life, I had something to do after school, always had somewhere to go. I had to be at practice. I had to wake up early in the morning. And when I didn't have that anymore, it was, okay, what do I do now? My entire life. Hi, I'm Candice Dominguez. I am a high jumper. I run track at the University of Nebraska. Okay, I ran track, but do I live in the past forever? So that was honestly the hardest part of my transition out, is what do I do next? And how do I become anything when my entire life was taken away from me? But accepting that I will always be a student athlete, I always have those experiences, is kind of what motivated me to keep going and, again, do what I do now and help that transition phase out, because everything I learned in sports is still relevant to my life. Like, I still have to show up on time. I still have to listen to myself and my needs and my body in track. But I also have to still listen to my superiors like they are my coaches, and it's all related.
Yeah, I think that's important, because as most people are surprised I played golf in high school. Shout out to the golfers out there, but then ended up playing basketball in college. But it's like taking that, not having a team, not having people behind you, you feel like when you step into the professional space that doesn't exist. But I think all of you can attest that you're still part of a team. You're still held accountable by your teammates, and you hold your teammates accountable in the office to produce. Cam, I want to talk to you a little bit about your transition, because I think it's something that a lot of high school students, or a lot of high school and high school student athletes feel like, hey, I'm going to go to college. I'm going to get a D1 scholarship, then I'm going to go pro. But you took a different approach, and an approach that I tell a lot of high school student athletes, like, if you don't get that scholarship and you want to be around sports, find those opportunities, become a manager. I always use Duke managers as an example. There's not a Duke manager in the world that isn't doing what they want to do because they were a Duke manager, right? So shout out to North Carolina. You know, I had to say Duke. Normally I would say like Tennessee or something. But you went to Illinois and you were working in strength and conditioning. What was that transition like for you to go from someone who's competing to now someone who's training those competitors?
Yeah, for sure. So on my side, coming all the way through high school, I was a student athlete. I didn't play in college, but I first started off, I had dreams of being an orthopedic surgeon because I wanted to work with the athletes. So that was going to be my end initially. So I was pre-med all the way through my senior year.
Who does that?
What's that?
Who does that?
I know. And my senior year, started personal training at the rec center, and that was kind of my end. So once I got in that group, I knew that I wanted to be, with the athletes. So reached out to our strength and conditioning staff, and that was my first opportunity. So I got my foot in the door. So just being able to reach out, and if there's something that I knew the space that I wanted to be in. I didn't know exactly where my career was going to lead me, but just being curious and being willing to reach out to the people who might have an answer for me. So that first contact got my foot in the door, and that foot in the door allowed me to have an amazing 2 years at Illinois, as an intern for a few months, and then as a part-time strength and conditioning coach. I had my own teams with softball, cheerleading, and then assisted with baseball, soccer, travel with all of them, and that family still. But then that led me, to my next journey, into, getting my foot in the door at TCU and, kind of, where I'm at now. So I think the biggest thing within my transition has just been willing to reach out and just ask questions. If there's a curiosity or anything that is an interest, find the people who are related to that space, and just try to get that foot in the door, and that'll lead you on the journey that's meant for you.
Yeah. Lawrence, I think you are the epitome of that, of making those connections. You were at Queens, and anything that had to do with sports in your athletic department, I think you're involved in like the sport marketing club, doing things for basketball games and everything. For you, how was the connections you made with your professors and everything? How did that help you along your journey and getting to ESPN, and then kind of now where you are with Octagon?
Yeah, I think that relationship building with your mentors, your professors is, it's invaluable. You can't really put into words what it means for you, at least until you actually, come out on the other side, of course. But I think a lot of times we often take for granted just how a small opportunity can turn into something massive for you. It can create all the momentum in the world for you. And to your point, there were a ton of things in college that I looked at and said, anybody else want to take a shot at this before I step in? No? Okay. And the funny thing is, we always think about what we have a passion for and what we want to do, and we should strive for that. But sometimes finding out what you don't like is just as important. And there were so many things that I tried once, and I said, you know what, that's not for me. But now that helped me in a way, whether it developed me personally, professionally. And so then I was able to navigate and rely on my professors, because they will be there. You have to just be willing to accept the challenge, so to speak. And I remember one thing that always stuck with me is, it doesn't matter if you're the smartest person in the room, the most dedicated person in the room, the most creative person in the room. If you're not available, doesn't help, right? So that was just one of the bigger things for me that I was fortunate enough to understand early and often, is if you're just available and willing to do the work, you'll have the opportunities. So with that said, I was able to get the opportunity to meet you, Corinne, when I was volunteering for SEC and ACC Media Day for football and basketball. And I'll never forget, the next day, my professor said, "Hey, Lawrence, how about you come to my 8 o'clock class?" Mind you, 8 o'clock in the morning, which I guess may not seem too early right now if you're in high school. But it wasn't even the class I was supposed to go to. My first class wasn't until 11. And I went in the class, and Corinne happened to be speaking. And she was like, "Hey, I remember you. You had those shoes on." But it wasn't just that. But I also made an impact just from my willingness to just do work while I was there and to make the most out of my time. So from that, that connection was important. And as I saw later in my career, the more times that you move in the room and get to know the next person, even if you're not working with them, can be extremely important to lead to that next opportunity.
And I think before we throw it to our first break for questions, I think one thing consistently that I've heard from you all without saying it is closed mouths don't get fed. You know, I hear all of you saying you put yourselves out there, you talk to people, you connect with your mentors. If people don't know what you want to do, they can't help you. And even now, as an old lady, I guess, old lady gang over here, I tell people, Jeff always knows, like, if I have an idea, if I think there's something I want to do, Jeff is going to know about it, because Jeff may know the football coach at Stanford that's like, you know what, I'm going to hook you up. Or, even Candice, Lawrence, and Cam, like, if I have an idea, you never know who can help you. And it's not meant to be transactional, but it's meant to be transformative. Really think about that. The more people that know what you want to do, the better they can help you. So Scott, I want to hear some FIYA with FIYA questions from.
I got you some FIYA questions. I got you. So Jaslyn Jordan is asking, what if you're a student athlete and don't make it into sports within college? How do you overcome that?
Yeah, I think Cam, if you want to take that, like I mentioned, with your transition from getting on campus and finding your in with the strength and conditioning, like, you don't have to be the athlete to still be in sports. So what was your mental like to make that, like, again, I'm not competing, but now I'm training the competitors?
For sure. I think the biggest thing for me was, for one, there's so many intangibles that we get from sports. Like, I'm still, even though I'm not, on the playing field, I still have the athlete mentality. So I pretty much took that same mentality, that competitive mentality, that hunger, that, all those tools. And I was like, all right, so how am I what do I want to do in the next stage of my life? What's going to give me fulfillment? And so that was kind of my motivation towards going towards, getting with strength and conditioning, because I was going to at least be within that environment. I was going to be able to, use all the skills that I had, gotten from my time as a student athlete, and now just translating those into the next stage of my life. And even to this day, even though I'm not in strength and conditioning anymore, and I'm still waking up early. I was up at 4:30 this morning and got my workout in, because I'm still in that athlete mentality. I'm, trying to, keep that going as long as I can. But all that to say that, you all have a lot of translatable skills that are going to apply to, the next stage of your life. And that's an asset to, a lot of people in, workplaces. Like, people are reaching, me working with the Letterman Association, people are reaching out to me because they want to hire former athletes, because there's a different mentality for athletes compared to, people who aren't athletes. So just recognize that and, use that to your advantage for sure.
Yeah, and I think, like I said it before, I want to make sure I say it loudly. If you are a high school student athlete and you don't get a scholarship to compete, when you get on campus, if you want to work in sports, find your way to the athletic department as a freshman. Find that free labor is the best labor, right? So, and I say free, but in a lot of cases, they'll pay for books. They'll take care of your meals. They will take care of you if you are working in an athletic department. Every team needs a manager. Every team needs a videographer. Every team needs someone to just take stats. Like, I remember we had managers at Tennessee. Literally, their job was to track how many times the players deflected the ball in practice. We're not talking about games, but how many times. So this manager received books and a stipend to track stats. So don't think if you don't have a jersey on and you're not competing for the school that you don't add value to the team. Great question, Scott. Any other questions? I see some people popping in the chat and whatnot and stuff. So I want to make sure we answer as many questions as we can during the break.
Certainly. We have a question right here. How can a college student start to develop a resume for a potential career in sports?
Lawrence?
Hey, I'll jump in for this one. So kind of like what I was saying previously, you don't take for granted the opportunity, whether it's big or small. I remember there were plenty of opportunities that I had in college that may have appeared glamorous because there was a big title attached to it, like, ACC championship football game, but sometimes at those events, I remember specifically for that one, I wasn't even working anywhere around the game. The volunteer work was this hotel down the street, and I was doing concierge to tell people where they could get some food before the game, and that was the volunteer work. Now, did that enhance me from a business standpoint? I mean, maybe not. Who's to know? But essentially, what to get from that is there's going to be all types of opportunities. The best thing to do, especially in this industry, is to just meet as many people as possible, continue to show your face, and show that no task is too small. Because like Corinne said, I mean, they're willing to do so many, I mean, free labor, I mean, it's everywhere. And especially in sports, it's super competitive because if you don't do it, I know somebody else will do it just to be around sports. So you just have to be adamant about putting your face out there, making those connections, shaking those hands, and putting the work in. It'll go a long way.
Yeah, I think one piece of advice that Marie and I give a lot to people is don't say no. If someone says, hey, Lawrence, I need somebody to take this trash out 10 miles down the road to Fort Mill, South Carolina, okay, get your best running shoes on and haul that trash to Fort Mill, South Carolina, right? And so I think right now social media creates this falsehood of if I'm not on a boat in the Maldives, I'm not really living my best life. But it's like some people, I remember my first paying job wasn't until I had a whole master's degree and I'm like 23, 24, but I had worked a ton of opportunities in sports. So just putting yourself out there and not saying no to opportunities, because like Lauren said, it is super competitive. If you don't want to do it, I can find 10 other people who are willing to take the trash to Fort Mill. So if this is really what you want to do, put yourself out there and let people know. So is it okay to continue and then we'll come back to the question, Scott? Perfect. All right. So let's talk about some of the skills. Candice, I know while you were at Nebraska, you got your master's, so you had the opportunity to have not so much of a heavy course load. So you had the opportunity to do some other things and gain some experience. What were the skills that you gained being an athlete at Nebraska that kind of helped you start that transition into your career?
So being at Nebraska specifically kind of just gave me more confidence. And I say that really weirdly. I don't know if anybody has been to Nebraska at all or familiar with Nebraska athletics. I'm a California girl, okay? But Nebraska athletics is huge in the state of Nebraska. Like I would wear my Nebraska track and field shirt in the grocery store and people would be like, oh my gosh, you're so cool. Like, do you want to talk? And no, not really. I just want to get my groceries. But I say that it gave me confidence because I really leveraged the fact that I was a University of Nebraska student athlete. And I could reach out to people and I'd say, hi, I'm Candice, I'm this person. And even if you're not a student athlete at a big school or not a student athlete at all, like there's something in your life that somebody is going to be interested in and you say, hi, I am so-and-so and this is what I do. And that sometimes helps. And it's helped.
I want to stop you there because that's a skill in itself that I think is overlooked. Just being able to gas yourself up. Like you are your best salesperson. If you can't tell people about you and what you bring to the table and how you can be an asset to their team, then you're doing yourself a disservice. I think I saw a meme today that the only thing that can destroy iron is rust, and rust is self-made. So it's your mentality. So if you can't talk about yourself and say, this is why I'm awesome, then there's no need for you to be in this space. Because again, sports is hyper competitive.
Yeah, well, I took that, and again, talking about free labor, the master's program that I did was paid for through like my school. It was through the College of Business. So whatever job that I worked in athletics, it had to be a job in athletics, whatever job it was, the College of Business paid for it. So I kind of had leverage there, and I worked equipment when I was in undergrad in Sacramento, and I went to the equipment room. They didn't actually have a position open, but I was like, hey, I have equipment experience. You don't have to pay me. Can I work with you? And they were like, obviously, I'm not going to tell you no. So I got more experience there. And even like being a student athlete, yeah, it was super cool. I was in the same building. But even not being a student athlete, nobody else in the room that worked with me was a student athlete. They all worked for free, but they got a bunch of free gear, like Ultra Boost, lots of shoes, sideline tickets to games. Like it was incredible. And taking that confidence one step further, the reason I have my job now is because I reached out to my now boss on LinkedIn, never met this person, just thought, hey, maybe this job would be interesting one day. Didn't even want a job, really just wanted to know what he did and how he got his job. And was like, hey, can I talk to you? I am just really interested about your career path and how you got to where you are. Set up a phone call with me. By the end of the phone call, he was like, yeah, I'm actually looking for an intern. Send me your resume. And now I'm a Super Bowl champion. So
look at what
you're saying.
And you know, what's great about this conversation is that these three people are more like our audience than myself and Jeff, right? Like these are adults saying, this is how we used to do things 10 years ago. Like this is what was taking place a year ago, 2 years ago. Like the journeys that Candice, Cam, and Lawrence have had are just taking place. Candice today just got offered a full-time job with the Chiefs. And so I don't want you all to think like we're just talking and these journeys are anomalies or, you know, an outlier to what you can do. Because confidence is a skill that as a student athlete, you can translate into a lot of different things. But what I would love to know from Lawrence is, you know, you won a state championship in high school. You know, to get a state championship is not easy, you know, especially on a football team where there's 1,000 people on the team. Everybody has to do their part. What did you learn from competing with that team at that level to achieve the highest level that you've been able to take into working at ESPN, working at Octagon, that you think like, had I not had that experience, I don't know if I could really handle what I'm doing right now?
Yeah. And it's probably something that's very cliche and very simple, and something that we often hear a lot in the sports world, which is forget about the last play. You can't expect to really get too far if there's a lot of hesitancy in your next move because you're worried about getting it wrong again. We have to adjust our expectations in all of this. We're young, we're fresh into our roles, we're going to make mistakes, and that's just part of the job. The expectation from your superiors in most cases is not that you come in knowing everything anyway, right? I got to figure out what the mailroom is. I got to figure out, you know, how do I respond to this email in the way our company would respond to this email, right? So taking away from all of the reps in practice, we know you can't just show up to a game and say, okay, where do I go? I'm ready to play. It's like, well, have you worked out all week? Have you strengthened? Have you strategized? Have you looked at the film? These are all of the intangibles that you take to life and business. Is I have to be able to embrace these mistakes. I have to learn from them. And again, to Candice's confidence, you know, I have to be able to move forward as if it never happened. Right. So that's the biggest thing that I took away from my time there.
And I think that's really important to say as someone who deals a lot with interns. I have the unfortunate ability to work with elite athletes as interns and who are used to winning. And so when they come into an internship, they're not winning. They don't know nothing. You know, like you think just because you're on Instagram and you have 10,000, 20,000 likes that you understand social media. No, if you can't tell me the analytics as to why this post did better than this post or when the best time to post, you don't know social media. So I think what I see a lot of times with them is that hesitation that you talk about, Lawrence, with like, if I'm not the best at this, either I'm not going to do it or I'm not going to ask questions. And that hurts the entire organization. Because again, I'm not really expecting you to know anything. Honestly, like that's why you're here with the organization, is to learn. And I'd rather you ask me 100 questions trying to figure something out than ask no questions and do it wrong. And so I think it's important for the reps, the strategy, like put that into your life as a young professional. If social media, if that's what you want to hang your hat on, no more than the DMs and the TikToks and all that stuff. Like if you think TikTok is valuable, you need to show me why TikTok is valuable and how it relates to my organization, not just because it's cool. Tell me where it adds value, because at the end of the day in sports entertainment, it's about the bottom line. Does this make us money? If it doesn't make us money, I don't care. What they say, if it doesn't make dollars, it don't make sense. So if you are not getting those reps in, taking the time outside of the internship hours or whatever opportunity you have to learn and grow, then you're doing yourself a really disservice. I want to get to Cam now, because raising money is not an easy thing to do. I don't even like fundraising, and that's literally what I'm supposed to do. But that's literally your job at a school that has a big coffer, and a coffer is, I'm gonna break that down, like a big pool of money that you could attract, right? But you're working with a team to raise that money. You are part of a group of people who collectively come together to create plans and whatever you do to raise money. How has working with a team in high school when you were at Illinois prepared you for working with the team now as a young professional? You're not maxing out, but you're trying to get the most money, right? So how has that helped you?
It's a great question. I think for me, there's so many elements that go into it. I mean, one of the biggest things is just, communication skills. Communication is not just what's coming out of your own mouth, but also what's coming out of other people's mouth, actually listening. So in terms of that collaboration and leadership, when we're going to that, going in that direction, all of those things are, we've gathered from our times as student athletes, as we've, had to work with people with different personalities, our coaches, and understanding, how we're going to get the best out of ourselves, but also how to get the best out of, our teammates. And just that overall, creating the best environment. And so in terms of all those things, I mean, I've kind of been intentional with developing my own self. I mean, I used to be the shyest, quietest kid growing up.
What? I don't believe it.
Yeah, I was shy, like seriously, like I had the strongest meme mug from the south side of shy. But definitely came a long way. It was intentional about, getting, continuing to get outside of my comfort zone. And all of those pieces have allowed me to, where I'm at now, I'm talking to people for a living. And a lot of that, honestly, a lot of it comes down to just caring for people, just like, once again, that, in terms of the communication piece, just actively listening and learning how to, and this is kind of a combination of going back to what Corinne and Lauren just said in terms of, being able to lead, from the standpoint of just being able to, I kind of lost my train of thought on that one, but
okay, so that purple.
Yeah, I know, it's getting to me, but essentially, just being able to communicate and develop relationships with people has been a key for me. And those relationships, I mean, people we have to tug at the heartstrings and just be, getting to know people and the individuals, and essentially people don't give, people give to people. And so like those relationships have allowed me to be able to develop those relationships. And once the time comes in terms of the different programs that we're fundraising for, different initiatives, they're not given to the specific project, they're given to me and the vision that I'm able to communicate to those people. So in terms of communication is the biggest key that has allowed me to, kind of brought me to this point.
Could you raise as much money as you guys do without a team?
No, not at all. I mean, it's just a lot of minds being put together. We all wear a lot of different hats, and it's a lot of pieces that go into that fundraising pool. So us all being able to collaborate together as we were on the field or on the court, that has allowed us to, be successful in the efforts that we put on to this day.
Yeah, Scott, I know you got some fire questions. That fire in the question in the Q&A.
Of course. So Tyra Apperly has asked, as you succeed and see that you're steadily rising in success, what are the actions that you take to make sure you stay on track and not juggle too much on your plate?
Ooh, Lawrence, I think this is a great question for you because you stay busy. You got mad podcasts, blogs. I'm over here at Octagon. I'm doing photo shoots. I'm doing all the things. Please, I'd love to hear your perspective on this.
Oh man, I feel like I'm gonna get into my angry Gary V approach. I'll hold that for another time. But first off, like organization is something that's super important, right? You might have a million things going on today. You might have two things going on today. You might have to go pick up somebody from the airport and remember to take the chicken out of the fridge, right? But you just have to compartmentalize that. And it can be something as simple as just writing it down. I know for me in the morning, I have a checklist of maybe 3 to 5 things that I need to take care of in order of importance. And just finding ways, if it doesn't work for you to physically write something down, maybe you want to put it in your notes in your phone. Maybe you want to start in the morning and then something at night so you can have something to recap. Did I accomplish this today? And just finding out whatever works for you. But I think if you do, whether it's write or type and just put it out there, something for you to visually look at, it helps keep you accountable of the task that you might need to complete for that day.
Yeah, and I think one thing I love, like this little thing right here, right? We do the TikToks on here, we slide in the DMs, we doing all the likes, but there is so much more to this phone. I think I'm not a big phone person because I'm super outdoorsy, but Jeff knows like my calendar, I put everything in my calendar. I went to take my dog to the vet this morning and I made another appointment before I left the vet. The next appointment is in here. Even things like take a break today, don't work on your computer is in there. I think you don't have to be like a CEO to use those apps that you're like, this is for my mama, the calendar app. Use that. Like if you are reaching out to people to schedule like, hey, I want to learn more about your journey and you don't show up because you didn't know what time or you forgot, that don't work. There's too much technology out there for you to miss it. If you reach out to Lawrence and say, hey, Lawrence, I want to hear more about your journey, put that joint in your calendar so that you get an invite. You get a reminder. I use Calendly, and Calendly is something that automates my whole life. If somebody says, hey, let's find a time to chat, I'm not going back and forth with you. I'm saying, boop, here's a link, find a time, we'll talk, unless you're Candice, and I'm like, oh no, girl, I have something to do at 12. But but use technology, use your notes. Something I learned actually from Pat Summit's son is that he would break out his day in like 15-minute increments. He's an anomaly in itself, but and it wasn't so much of like, this is what I'm going to do this 15 minutes, but this is what I'm working on for these blocks of time. And that can be really helpful for you. And over time, people that you talk to understand your schedule. Like people know in the morning, I go to the lake. Jeff knows, like if you call me before 9 o'clock, I'm at the lake. or I'm on the hike. So don't be afraid to use technology to help you stay organized. What you got? What other question you got, Scott? We'll do one more and then we'll move to the next part of our conversation.
Gotcha. So Carter Bain had asked, and this is for anyone, what inspired you to do what you do now?
Candice, I'd love to hear what inspired you to do player engagement for an NFL team, because I don't think a lot of people think, I think they think either I'm a coach or I'm training, I'm on the sideline helping them win games, and not so much like helping them beyond the game.
Right. So when I was in college, most recently at the University of Nebraska, the most influential person to me, his name was DeJuan Baker, and he worked out of our life skills department. He was technically the director of diversity and inclusion. That's what his title was. That's what he did in the department. But being in the life skills department, he did still have some responsibilities as basically figuring out what the heck kids are going to do when they're done with school.
Yeah.
And
Shout out to DeJuan.
he is how I even found the winning edge. He is why I'm on this panel right now. And he was the first person I texted when I got offered full-time with the Chiefs. And that, having that relationship with him, I could go into his office and just be like, yo, I had a bad day, or I have no idea what I'm doing with my life. Can you help me? And he always had resources, people I could talk to as far as like, this will help you with your resume, or talk to this person because she's in a similar situation as you and maybe she has some tips. And it was honestly the best thing that I needed, what I needed when I was in school. I mean, sometimes it's called something different at other places. Student athlete development, life skills is what it was at Nebraska. But I wanted to be able to do that for other people, especially seeing that I wanted to stay in sports, but I don't want to be like a broadcaster. That's not interesting to me. I don't want to coach. That's not interesting to me. And this really helps me stay and use both my business degrees with athletes.
Yeah. And I think one thing you mentioned, like working in sports, I didn't want to be a broadcaster. I didn't want to coach. And for me, when I went to Tennessee, I wanted to be a coach. That's what I thought I wanted to do. And I went and I was like, if I want to be a coach, I'm going to go learn from the best coach, right? I'm going to go learn from Pat Summitt. And 2 years in, I was like, nah, I'm good. Thanks though, girl. I appreciate the opportunity. But as to Lauren's point earlier, it's like, it was an opportunity to find out what I didn't like. And what I didn't like is the possibility of me losing my job over what an 18-year-old tweets at 2 a.m. So I was not about that life. And so I think it was that, regardless of the experience, even if I knew going afterwards, like, you know, I didn't want to do that, I was still motivated by those opportunities to just do my best. So what I want to know now from you guys, which is, I'm already laughing, is you guys talk about that transition. But let's start with you, Cam. What do you miss most about being a high school student athlete and to be an industry professional now? Like, I mean, that is a big jump anyways. Like, you were at home with your mama, she driving you everywhere anyway, to now, like, you do what you want. If you want a haircut, you get it. But what is it that you're missing the most right now from that experience?
It was definitely good times back then.
No bills, right? No bills?
Exactly. And it's real now. But I would say for me, I mean, it's just organized competition, being with a team, doing like truly what you love. Like I said, I was playing basketball since the age of 3. Then, had an equal amount of love for football once I got into high school. And so just the time spent with those people is what I miss the most. I mean, those are my best friends to this day. My other 2 captains of our high school football team, we all went to University of Illinois together, and we're all catching up next week. So, I mean, it's his family. So I definitely miss that type of bond within organized competition.
What don't you miss?
Conditioning.
Oh, how ironic.
Yeah. I can lift some weights, but conditioning, that's not my favorite.
You're not about that life?
Nah.
That's fine.
I'm retired.
Yeah. Lauren, what do you miss most about winning high school championships?
I know. Hey, we got to keep it a championship. No plural there. We didn't even make it back. But I mean, you
I'm
know,
really salty about that one, though. I'm like, most people are happy with one. You're like, nah, but we ain't get the second one, so you know.
well, you know, it always hurts. My junior year, we got close again and lost to the opposing quarterback was actually from the city of Fayetteville, which is where I'm from. So it was like a homecoming for him. And walking off a semifinal game to a guy that's from your city was just the worst feeling in the world. But Cam hit it on the head, just that camaraderie. And a lot of times, you know, if you're fortunate enough, you grew up around these guys, you build these strong bonds that just stay with you your entire life. In the work environment, it's a bit different. You can certainly build that chemistry, but you've got people from all different walks of life, and they have their own responsibilities after they clock out, right? So we're not hanging out for drinks afterwards. But that's probably what I miss the most.
So I want to wrap up before we give more time for question and answers. I want to start with Candice. Since the topic was titled Monday morning quarterback, and obviously you're Super Bowl champion. What if you could tell Candice back in California when she was in high school cheering / running, what would you tell her now to say, hey girl, like it's about to get real out here, that you think could have helped you to get where you are right now? Though it seemed like you did okay, but I'm sure there was some adversity there. What would you tell yourself?
And of course, there's adversity. I'll say two things here. First thing, try to convince your family to move with you. That's for me. I'm from California, but football season is during most of the important holidays. I haven't been home since September, and it sucks. I miss them. I have an 11-year-old brother that I haven't seen in so long. So at least take more pictures with them is the first thing. But secondly, I didn't know in high school, or I guess I didn't realize in high school, that there are so many people out there that want to help you. And there are so many people that will help you if you just ask for it. Because here I was just thinking like, oh my gosh, this is so hard. Nobody in my family did it. But no, like even just this panel, there are things like this. There's things like the winning edge. You just have to look for it. It's not going to always come to you, but you can always get help, and there's people out there willing to help.
I like that. And again, closed mouths don't get fed. So if you're not telling people how they can help you or how you need help, then you're not going to get the help. Lawrence, what is something you tell one-time champion Lawrence, if you could?
I'd say, hey, look, you're going to get an opportunity at ESPN. You need to watch out for this woman. Her name is Corinne Milien. Give you a crazy time. But I think for me, you know, and I stressed earlier just the importance of opportunities and embracing those. Clubs and organizations can be a great way to find out what you're passionate about, even if it's outside of what your interests are, right? And I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I always use like Kobe Bryant is like a perfect example of this. Before he passed in 2018, he was in this interview and he stressed back again to this, the theme of transition that we've talked about. And he was known as the guy that after games, he wouldn't go out with the teammates. When they were on the road, if they were flying back on the team plane, he was reading, writing. Guys are like, why is he reading and writing? What is he doing? He was studying. And we're talking prime Kobe Bryant. We're talking about Black Mamba. I just crossed up for the game winner just 10 minutes ago. My head's in a book and I'm studying for the next part of his life. And his whole thing was he wants to make sure the next 20 years are better than his previous 20 years. And anything that he can do now to prepare for that next step, it makes that transition so much smoother. I mean, this guy won an Oscar after retiring and scoring 60 points in his final game. That doesn't just happen. So what I would tell myself is try to get engaged and involved in all of the extracurriculars you can, because finding that passion early is going to set you up better in the long run.
Cam? I don't know. Nobody can ever top a Kobe story, so good luck with that, bro.
No, I was just getting ready to say, man, Lawrence just took my whole thing. No, it's well, for one, I will say, I mean, Kobe. I wasn't a Kobe fan until after,
Same.
or after his playing career.
Yeah.
After his playing career, because I mean, I watch him all the time. Like that Mamba mentality, it's the real deal. But kind of going along with the theme of what Lauren said, I mean, I think for back in the day, Cam, the advice that I would give is, I was, like I said, I started off, I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon. Like I said, all the way through my senior year. That's what I was focused on. That's what I thought I was going to be. But I don't regret any step in my path, but I would tell myself to be focused and directed, but also open and curious. And curious in terms of, what all the options are, kind of going to what we've all said throughout, just being able to get experience, even if it's just volunteering time at different events and, things going around campus. I was so focused on that pre-med education. Like I did not step outside of that box and just continue to stretch yourself, kind of what Kobe has done, and all of you all as athletes in your craft, you want to continue to get better. So continue to study, continue to just be curious and grow as an individual, and then that's going to allow you to be to continue to grow and be your best selves, in whatever you want to do in life. So that's what I got.
Yeah. I don't know if high schoolers now remember this, but I always say tell people, everybody want to be Drake, but they don't want to work like Aubrey. So if for those who don't remember, Aubrey Graham used to be on a show called Degrassi in the Canada Broadcasting Channel, and he was out here acting. But he was putting work in the studio, and people forget that sometimes. They're just like, oh, Drake just came on the scene. But he got shot up in a high school drama and was in a wheelchair, and now he's acting in a wheelchair. But then 5 years later, he's with Lil Wayne and Nicki Minaj dropping platinum albums. So I think it's important to understand, like, it's okay to be patient, but stay busy, right? Like, just like a duck on the surface, you don't see their feet moving crazy trying to get around. You just have to stay busy. And I think right now, as young people, you have all the tools necessary to reach out to people. I know someone mentioned about reaching out to people even as a freshman. Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, these are all fantastic platforms that if you come correctly, someone will give you time. Don't hit somebody in the DMs with BRB and TTYL if you really want to have a conversation with them. Hit them like you would hit an email, because you may not have access to their email address, and this may be the only way you can contact them, but treat it like an email address. Use LinkedIn. Have at least your picture on LinkedIn so they know who they're responding to. Do those little things that many people aren't willing to do to set yourself apart. Facebook has a ton of groups. I'm a part of an American Dingo, because that's my dog is an American Dingo. I'm a part of that group, but I'm also a part of a group called Black Sports Professionals. And these are like-minded individuals who want to uplift each other. Anything that you want, there's a group out there, whether it's on Facebook or LinkedIn. Even like I'm getting into shipping container homes, and I can find a whole page on Instagram on shipping container homes. Don't be laughing at me, Cam. Don't laugh. I will build a house out of shipping containers. But I think you guys are already on social media, and I say you guys as in the high school students who are watching this, use social media as your tool. If you want to be a sports broadcasting, you need to follow sport broadcasters, understand how they live their life, reach out to them. If you want to be a strength and conditioning coach, follow strength and conditioning coach. These guys are just as famous now. The get back coaches is what they call them now. But these guys, they're on social media. Don't be afraid to hit them up. So Scott, I want to spend the rest of the time, I think we have 2 minutes on question and answers, if anybody has any fire questions.
Gotcha. Somebody had asked, is it worth getting your master's to work in sports?
Oh, geez.
I don't think we can wrap that one up in 2 minutes.
I don't think so. I think I have come to the conclusion to that answer of, if someone is paying for it, honestly, like, especially with the economy now and everything and how it's going, if you can get somebody else to pay for it, whether it's the school, like for myself and Candice and stuff, or like I was a GA and Tennessee paid for me my master's, or like ESPN, they like some companies will also pay for you to take classes. If that is an opportunity that you can take advantage of, that is the way to go. I don't know if nowadays it's really worth just going to get a master's and sitting at home playing Fortnite while you get a master's. Like, I don't think that's the wave, because you're missing out on opportunities otherwise. So I know it's not.
Can I chime in a second?
Yes, please.
This sounds kind of bad because education is great.
Yeah.
I personally did my master's because I finished undergrad in 3 years and I still wanted to run track. To be honest, I got a free master's degree and I had 2 more years of eligibility. Of course, I love it having it on my resume now, but other than that, I didn't learn anything new because I had my undergrad in the same thing. It was super simple, but it was free, and now it's a resume point. Not saying don't get it.
Yeah.
Obviously, education is important, and that's one thing that can't be taken away, but there's different reasons that everybody does it, and I did mine so I could run longer.
Yeah, right. I think let's do one more question because I'm feeling oh, it's 12 o'clock. So no worries, Jeff. Thanks again for this platform. I think we did all right. What do you think?
Corinne, you got to add moderator rock star to your resume now. I can't believe that ever, but you nailed it. And I guess having a bunch of talented, passionate people on the panel makes it an awful lot easier. But everybody really impressed with today. Thank you guys for sharing so openly. I think there was a lot there to take away for sure.
Before we go, I'm going to take a screen grab. So I just need everybody to smile real quick. Yeah. Yeah.
So everybody bookmark Winning Edge Leadership Academy. Check it out. Those guys are literally changing the game. They're doing all sorts of great stuff. So, follow them and check up on all the developments. Lastly, as a note to everybody, don't forget about the Career Exploration Pass program. Students, you guys can earn points that can go towards prizes, sports memorabilia, cash for college, etc. So jump on board that and make sure you guys have been engaging with the program. A lot of students yesterday got involved, so keep going with that. And also, we've got a session at 3 o'clock today, which is our only 3 o'clock session of the week, that will walk students directly through LinkedIn, how to use it, why it's valuable, all that good stuff. So thank you guys all. Can't thank you enough for sharing your stories today. That was great.
Thank you. Game Changers, way to represent. That's what I'm talking about.
No game changers.
We do.
You're out.
See ya. Thanks, Jeff.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.